But late last week, Syracuse football brought in Malachi Nelson from the transfer portal, a former number one overall recruit in the country in 2023. In addition to bringing in Malachi Nelson as, say, just a quarterback, they're actually going to give him a chance to potentially compete to start for Syracuse at quarterback. And so my takeaway in all of this, because we've had a little bit of time to actually digest the news of Syracuse getting Malachi Nelson, I believe it happened late on Saturday night, is that getting Malachi Nelson is fine. It's an addition to the quarterback room. So I don't really have much of a problem with that, especially because it should be more depth. What throws me for a loop, and what probably may throw you a loop, what causes you to be a little bit skeptical, perhaps, dare I say, dumbfounded, is the idea that Malachi Nelson is going to come to Syracuse with a legitimate chance to start. It's a depth move. So I'm not going to freak out over it. But if we're actually evaluating the quarterback room, and we are going to evaluate the quarterback room in the next segment of this show, Malachi Nelson is not competing to be the starting quarterback. Malachi Nelson is not competing to be the second string quarterback. Malachi Nelson is competing to maybe be the third string quarterback. We'll see. Because they also brought in another kid from Georgetown. Yes, they actually brought in a quarterback from Georgetown. Yes, that sucky school. And Zayd Lott is a true freshman. Those are the guys that he's going to be competing with. It should not be Steve Angeli or Amari Odom. This should be nothing more than a depth move, but it's the messaging around it that will throw you in for a whirl. So let's get into the backstory of Malachi Nelson. He was ESPN's number one overall player in the nation in the 2023 recruiting cycle. He's listed at 6'3", 193 pounds. He's got 2 more years of college eligibility remaining. For all intents and purposes, and I am sorry to be harsh and blunt, but Malachi Nelson is a bust in college football. He's a bust. Could he change that? Sure. He's got 2 more years of eligibility to try to change the narrative. But the facts are the facts right now. He is a bust in college football. In 2023, he was at USC. He attempted 3 passes, did not get on the field, which is fine as a true freshman, even as the number one overall player in the nation. But it did not work out at USC. And so in 2024, he transfers to Boise State, where a lot of people thought, given Malachi Nelson's supposed talent and supposed pedigree, that he would very easily be Boise State's starting quarterback in 2024. And I got good news for you all, ladies and gentlemen. Boise State in 2024 went to the college football playoff. But Malachi Nelson was not the starting quarterback of Boise State. In fact, it was Maddox Madsen who beat out Malachi Nelson to be the starting quarterback in 2024 at Boise State. And so now Malachi Nelson needs an opportunity to play. And so in 2025, he transfers to UTEP, and he does get his opportunity to be the starting quarterback of just a Division I football team, and actually in a group of 5 conference. He played in 6 games, and in those 6 games, Malachi Nelson had a 55% completion percentage. He had just under 1,200 passing yards. He had 8 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. But it's not just the numbers, and those numbers are very poor, by the way, that tell the story. What also tells the story is that his coach benched him mid-season and did not get on the field after that. So it wasn't just the numbers that looked poor. It was his own coach who looked at his performance and said, "You're not getting it done." at UTEP, mind you, Conference USA. That's where Amari Odom was playing last year. Can you kind of catch my drift here? Oh, by the way, Malachi Nelson, not much of a rushing threat, I may add. So the resume of Malachi Nelson should tell you that he's nothing more than just a quarterback that Syracuse added to its roster. Okay, he was the number 1 overall player in the nation in 2023. He's got a couple more years of eligibility left. Don't put him on the field. Just have him practice. Maybe he can rediscover his form. That's the optimistic way to look at it. And that's how I'm going to try to look at this. But I'm telling you right now, that was not the messaging that was presented to us all, ladies and gentlemen. The messaging was from Malachi Nelson. He, referring to Fran Brown, is giving me the chance to compete for the starting QB job, and I am ready for it. I hope Fran Brown is lying. That's what I hope. And you could sit here and say, well, Jackson, what do you know that Fran Brown doesn't know? And my response would be, well, first off, obviously Fran Brown knows more than I do. But my other response would be, what does Fran Brown know that the head coach of UTEP doesn't know, who benched him? What does Fran Brown know that the head coach at Boise State doesn't know? You know, the same coach that didn't feel he was good enough to start there. Or what about at USC? And I think it's Lincoln Riley that's still there and was there in 2023. So what do those guys know that Fran Brown doesn't know? It's not me. Bottom line is that Malachi Nelson was someone who got benched at UTEP in 2025. He is on his 4th school in 4 years. I understand he was the number 1 overall player in high school in 2023. I don't mind the move simply for depth purposes. But Malachi Nelson should be nowhere near the football field on game day when Syracuse is playing. If he is, especially against Power 4 competition, well, then the Orange are in big fat trouble.